It's 2024, and if you want to get your shit together in your business, then you need to mind the gap. Right now, you can grab an early bird bonus when you enroll in my digital bookkeeping course, Mind the Gap. Visit my link tree in the show notes to enroll, and you'll be invited to book a one-on-one virtual call with me. We're going to strategize and set you on the path for financial success in your business. This call is free for new students of Mind the Gap, and it's currently a $500 value. The course will be available starting in May 2024, but don't wait to grab your free bonus and get into our online community. Everyone who enrolls in Mind the Gap right now will receive an exclusive invitation to join our virtual community. I'm going live in there twice a month to teach you valuable financial content, answer your business questions, we're co-working together, and you'll be able to network with other entrepreneurs who are doing this work too. All of my clients are there already, and we're so excited to meet you. Visit the show notes to get enrolled in Mind the Gap today. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money Through Ease. Today, I have a guest with me. It's Heather Jones from Heather Jones Coaching. Heather Jones is a native New Yorker who now resides in Alabama. So we're both displaced Yankees in the South because I grew up in New Jersey and I live in Louisiana.
Oh, wow. We'll have to talk about that someday.
Yes. She lives with her wonderful husband and two beautiful children. She's a lifelong lover of books, animals, and creating. So, we're soul sisters. Heather is a certified life coach who has taken the long route with many exciting endeavors on her way here. At 18, she joined the Army, met her husband, and after serving 6 years, exited the military. Early on, she studied baking and pastry arts, which she happily implements in her own kitchen for her friends and family's benefit. Awesome. You'll have to maybe see about shipping me some delicious goodies. She entered the entrepreneurial world officially as an Etsy shop owner, and over time, while enjoyable, she realized there was something more that she wanted to do, and that is when she found her passion to inspire and empower others, and that is where she found coaching. Thanks so much for being a guest on Money Through Ease. Heather, please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. And I love that when you were trying to say baking, your finance mindset was like banking, banking.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that in the cut. Like,
I love it. It's so natural, like it's human, right?
yeah, yeah.
But yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on today to chat with you and hopefully share some awesome insights with your audience, your listeners. Uh, so I think you pretty well covered it in my bio. I'm married with two little ones. Some of the things I don't even know if this was in there. I'm a veteran. My husband is a
Hmm.
retired veteran,
Hmm.
which kind of led me to who I serve today. 'Cause I
Hmm.
work with military spouse mompreneurs at this point in my business, but I think
Yeah.
you really covered all the key things.
I think that's such a common like journey or path for folks who are in the military or maybe a veteran or a retired veteran. Which the difference between that is like you served, but you didn't like retire from the armed forces versus you spent 20 years there at least, and then you got to retire as a veteran. So
Right.
I see a lot of folks like move into that entrepreneurial path or journey, rather than going out and like finding a job in the marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you and maybe how that intersects with the work that you do with your clients?
Yeah, so I actually served 6 years, just over 6 years. So
Hmm.
I personally did not retire
Hmm.
from the army. I met my husband while we were both serving and he retired, so I followed him on his career. And he
Yeah.
actually did go the traditional, got out of the army and went into working in like a 9 to 5, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I can still see where somebody coming out of the military after 20 years might have the passion or the idea that entrepreneurial pursuit is where it makes sense for them because the
Mm.
military is so structured. And for 20 years of your life, and most people join, 18, 19 years old. So
Yeah.
for all of those years, this is life. This is just
Yeah.
the way it is. And then you move into what we call the civilian sector and it's
Hmm.
just like a culture shock for somebody who had served for so many years. And some people just don't thrive in an
Yeah.
environment that's so different than what they had experienced for 20 years. So, where you could go into entrepreneurism, you can make it what you need it to be
Hmm.
and, to thrive in the areas where where your strengths are. So, I mean, that's just kind of my thought on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that makes good sense.
Yeah, like, and it is such a structured life that you lead in the military. My stepdad was in the Air Force and he retired from the Air Force in
Okay.
1999. I live in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is next to Bossier, where Barksdale Air Force Base is, which is Global Strike Command. Like, we're kind of a big deal down here, you know? But like, I kind of grew up in that environment of like moving around and watching, like, growing up watching him, like, and his work life being so structured in the military because it's a job, it's a life, like they tell you where to go, like who you get to be. And you're right, like when you start and you enlist, at 18 years old, like your brain isn't even fully developed yet. So they really
Mhm.
structure kind of who you become as a person with this very regimented lifestyle, and even like the way that you work and the way that you respond to situations and stuff. I think that would create such a unique experience for someone who left the armed services and becomes an entrepreneur and like has to figure out how to create that structure, that kind of regimented lifestyle and work style for them, or work ethic for themselves, without like a boss or a commanding officer like telling them what to do and where to be.
Yeah. I think that's funny. It really, you could look at it either way, right? Like you've always had this person telling you what to do, and now you're
Yeah.
supposed to figure it out on your own. On the other
Do this or
hand,
go to
do
jail.
yeah, right? Literally.
Yeah.
But you do have that discipline and structure that is so much a part of who you've been conditioned to be at
Hmm.
that point after that
Hmm.
many years. So it's almost like you kind of know, like, this is just what you do. You get up early, you get going, you do the thing, you get your body
Yeah.
moving, and then you get your brain moving and all the things.
Yeah.
So I could see how that would work really, really well for some retiring service members.
Yeah, for some folks, and then maybe for some folks, it is the fact that they had that external force of like someone to be accountable to. And now that person, there is no person, if they go into business for themselves, it is them that they have to be accountable to. I
Yeah.
wonder if there is kind of that binary experience between folks that really thrive on already being the person that is organized and has a structured lifestyle and gets up and gets moving and, um, you know, versus the person that does need that kind of external accountability, and I don't want to say pressure, but just like somebody else to kind of say, hey,
Kind of
like you
leadership,
need to be
right?
doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really
Interesting.
cool. I don't think I've had a veteran on the show. I'm trying to think, but that just occurred to me that like that might be such a interesting experience that like other entrepreneurs like myself who have not been in the armed service, like just not, coming up against that. Can you share with us what you specifically do with your clients and maybe like what a typical day in your business looks like?
Sure. So, very specifically, I work with military spouse mompreneurs on finding their version of balance and flow between all the responsibilities that a military spousepreneur takes on. So, kids usually, not always, but taking care of the home and then filling in the gaps when their service member is on the go, whether that's a TDY, which is temporary duty, they just go to another location for a short period of
Hmm.
time, or a
Hmm.
deployment where they're overseas for
Hmm.
a long period of time. And I help them learn how what their passions are can be pursued now, not when their
Hmm.
service member retires or leaves service, and how they can do that in a way that feels good to them, where it doesn't feel like plates
Hmm.
crashing all over the place. Like
Yeah.
everything feels like it flows well and harmoniously.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
So if we are working with somebody that is a mom or the woman and who has like a spouse that is in the service, and they've decided that they want to create a business for themselves. I don't know how long you've been doing this specifically or with this group of folks, but have you noticed a change in the availability of entrepreneurship because of like the things like online businesses and remote working? And if you are deployed with your spouse and you're living overseas, like you could possibly still run an online business based with like clients in the United States. And is that more available to people and like easier to manage and to access because of like the shift to the online virtual world?
So yes and no. Um, so mostly you kind of hit the nail on the head. What I think you were saying was like it's mobile, right? So as you're moving
Hmm.
around with your spouse, usually move
Yeah.
your, unless you have this grand idea to open a brick and mortar, which is kind of a
Yeah.
thing. You're going to really be able to do it most of the time.
Yeah.
If you have an online business, it can be very mobile, so you can move it. It can move as you move, and
Mhm.
that is very alluring to a spouse
Mm.
who knows that she's going to have to find something new to do every couple few years.
Yeah.
And that was certainly what it
Just
was like for
uproot your
me.
life
Yeah.
and figure something else out.
And by the way, you have to quit your job and find a new one at the next location
Yeah.
and start from the bottom to work your way back up to the top. And
Yeah.
it's like, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that every few years.
Yeah.
So having entrepreneurial endeavors for military spouses is extremely, it's either um, that they're already doing it or that they have the inclination to want to do it. And there's a huge percentage of us that
Hmm.
that is the path that we've chosen.
Hmm.
It's like 48% big. It's a big number.
Yeah.
That said, a lot of times it can even go overseas. The businesses can go overseas with us, but there are some countries that don't allow military spouses
Mm.
to work. So I can't say specifically which we never went
Okay.
overseas as far
Yeah.
as like a duty station, just
Hmm.
deployments and whatnot. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Cool. That's interesting. Like I really did not intend to go on this like tangent
it's not the
about
journey.
military
No.
spouse. But it just like occurred to me and I'm like, oh, this is interesting and like something that I hadn't thought about with this specific like community of folks. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
such a
interesting to think
curious thing
about.
for so many people who don't know what the lifestyle is like. It's
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
like my mom married my stepdad when I was like 2, so she always had like a career and she's been a computer programmer, so like oftentimes it was available for her to do remote work, but in like the 90s. Like we think now like remote work is actually pretty common, but like my mom was doing that in the 90s when not a lot of folks,
No.
they were commuting to a job. So us moving around didn't really like I don't know. I'll let her speak for herself if she wants to about whether or not that really affected her career. But from where I'm sitting, like she was able to make those changes and adjustments to her career. And she hasn't owned like a business. She's always, had a job or a role in somebody else's company. So
Yeah.
it's just very interesting to think about. Not my family's experience, but I think that it lends itself so much to like the spouse being an entrepreneur, being a business owner
Mhm.
because like we always love to talk about flexibility as business owners,
Yeah.
whether or not we can find that flexibility and can hold ourselves to that. And I think that is a good kind of segue into the topic that I want to talk about, which is that you help folks really navigate the self-care journey of being an entrepreneur and being a whole person who is a business owner, is a parent, is a spouse, is their own person, not in relation to anybody else. Um, what way can we look at self-care through the lens of money and finance, since that's what we talk about on this podcast?
Yeah, I love that question because so many ideas, and it's not a topic I usually like. I talk about self-care all the time, but through the lens of
Hmm.
finances, it's really
Hmm.
cool to be able to dive in here. So, let me start with when I talk about self-care, absolutely, I talk about the whole person. So we're not just talking about like getting massages, getting pedicures,
Yeah.
eating a salad for lunch. We're talking about caring for your emotions, your mental state, your spiritual state, all like
Yeah.
the whole entire person. And I think also on that note, a lot of people think like self-care is selfish or it's this thing I'll get to. Like I know I'm
Mm.
supposed to do it, but I'm okay right now. I don't like I'm doing okay. I'm
Yeah, the
surviving,
alarms
right?
aren't blaring. Why do I need to take care
Right.
of
Like
myself?
I'll get
Like it's not an
around to it, right?
emergency. Yeah.
Right. Personal development is business development. At
Hmm.
some point you'll get stuck. You have to care for yourself along the way in order to continue to keep that flow in your life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So self-care is, that massive part of personal development. Now, when it comes to finances, a lot of us get a lot of heartache around finances. Like money
Hmm.
can be a huge stressor for people. And
Yeah.
so, like some of the things that we can do, like the first thing that comes to mind, right? Let's just say we have to pay bills. And that can be a huge stress for people.
Yeah.
So you're getting ready to pay bills. Maybe you start a practice if you know it's a stressor for you, where you, what I would call ground yourself, but it's you just do deep breathing. just settle your mind and body
Mm.
so that you go into the bill paying, the process of, taking care of your finances in a more settled state. And so that it's
Yeah.
not such a stressor. It's just a fact. It's just a thing that you do.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to deep breathing, I do think it's important to note that there is a way to do it. You can't really
Yeah.
breathe wrong per se,
Yeah.
but it is important to note that the breaths should be deep. And you should
Hmm.
really try to be like working towards, pushing it kind of down into your diaphragm, which is, just like below your rib cage. And the
Hmm.
reason that's important is because most of us just naturally breathe into this space, shallow
Hmm.
chest breaths, and that can be a stressor in itself.
Hmm.
And so taking a moment before you're going to do the stressful thing like paying the bills or diving into whatever it is that you're doing with your finances, taking an opportunity to do the deep belly breaths and giving yourself a good solid minute or two in that space where you're just focusing on your breathing will get you to a place where you feel so much more centered and it
Mm.
starts to bring that stress level way down. So you go in a little bit more clear minded.
Yeah. And you specifically work with people with somatics kind of coaching tools. And somatics is, I want to say, just linked to our nervous system, whether or not it's activated, it's overactivated, it's underactivated, or if we're within our window of tolerance. So, um, a lot of my clients or people who come to me that want help with like their bookkeeping and their business finances are stuck, are procrastinating. Can you speak to a little bit about why that might be in relation to like nervous system activation? Because money can be an emotional thing, or it can be something that really triggers you to be like your fight or flight response and like or
Right.
freezing up. And that is the place that we don't want to manage our finances from.
Right. Yeah. So, absolutely, every thought we think impacts our body. Our body is
Hmm.
responding in some way. And so, if we're stressed, we're thinking quote unquote negative thoughts about the finances. Then our body is reacting, and we are often not really aware that it's reacting because we are so somatics. It's what you said. So just in like a really really simple explanation is somatics is dealing with the body, and
Hmm.
it's dealing with the mind body connection.
Yeah.
And so when your body is responding negatively and you're not even noticing it, there's this whole stress response that's happening.
Hmm.
Your creative and like more like here now in the moment brain kind of shuts down and that
Yeah.
primitive brain kicks in and that fight flight
Yeah.
freeze kind of like you talked about that kicks in. And so and that reacts, we have a reactive state in the body where um our nervous system just does very much go into like overdrive, and it's like, okay, I got to keep myself safe, I got to keep myself safe. And the fact of the matter
Yeah.
is you are safe.
Hmm.
It's about retraining your brain and your body to know, okay, there's no lion chasing me. I'm just paying bills. And at the end
Yeah.
of it, I am going to be okay. So, believe it or not, deep breathing is very much a very simple somatic exercise that you can do to calm the mind and the body.
Hmm.
And and that really is a way to like reset the habit and start to create a new habit for yourself where you don't go into that overdrive stress response. There's all
Yeah.
sorts of other things you could do though. Somatics it is like movement of the body. It's
Hmm.
also, it can be visualizations, believe it or not. So
Mm.
you can visualize sitting down and being calm about paying
Hmm.
your bills. You can, there's all sorts of practices that you can use if, I mean, the deep breathing's for everybody, but if you're
Yeah.
feeling like you need more, because that's okay, we're whole human beings and not the same thing is
Yeah.
going to work for all people. Maybe you need a little bit more. So give yourself permission to use your body how you need to do it. Have you ever noticed like you get really stressed and you like just have this like I just go like
You're
gotta
like
shake it
holding
off. I
your
just want to
breath.
like I just want to shake it
Yeah.
off. I want to shake it out. Do that.
Yeah.
The other day I got super stressed about something. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a complete spaz. I was by myself in the house and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose my mind. I gotta move
Hmm.
my body. I started jumping up and down and just shaking my
Hmm.
arms and flailing my body. And by the end of it, I was like, good, it's gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, giving yourself permission to use your body to, kind of release that energy that's pent up. Otherwise, it stores itself in your body and over the long term,
Yeah.
it's not good.
And because it is that mind body connection, it's like literally a flip. or switch gets flipped in our brain from like logical, like I'm a rational, educated, like, I'm an organized person, I'm on top of my shit. The
Yeah.
switch gets flipped and all of a sudden I am the animal the animal
Yeah.
instincts kick in and like, oh, the lion is chasing me. And we can look to animals. We can look to children, the animals, the dogs when they, like they're barking at somebody outside and you notice like once they're done and like the person who's just walking passes, the dog will like do its whole like shaking thing. And that is like them using their body to reset like that mind body connection of like, I'm not in any danger right now. And we can look to kids too, kids getting zoomies, like they're like trying to regulate their nervous system or they're like dancing around or fidgeting. And, it can drive parents crazy or their grown-ups crazy, like sit still, but that is them trying to like regulate. And it's a normal thing to do. But once we're adults, it's like kind of been programmed out of us to like use the body to reset things, to get us back into the, like you said, I'm safe, like I'm not in danger. But I want to speak to the safety thing. I 100% agree that safety is a mindset. That is something that I've been working on. But for folks that are sitting down to pay bills, it may actually be a thing about safety. Like if I don't pay the water bill, my water gets cut off. If I don't pay the light bill, my lights are going to get cut off. What can you say to address like that actual feeling of like, some of these things, like if I didn't have them, I wouldn't feel safe. And so that
Yeah.
can come up when you're paying them.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some, and that's such a great point because for some people, paying the bills truly is a major stressor. If you're living paycheck
Hmm.
to paycheck, if it's
Yeah,
like, do I get, groceries or do I pay my energy bill? Like,
totally.
that's no joke. That is
Hmm.
absolutely not to be overlooked. And we're not going to pretend like that's not difficult.
Yeah.
And you can still care for yourself, your body in the process. So it
Hmm.
does come back to I'm always going to come back to start with deep breathing. Like
Yeah.
if you listen to anybody in the personal development space, you're going to hear deep breathing over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it is free, it's accessible to everybody, and nobody
Hmm.
even has to know you're doing it, right? It's
Yeah.
just a thing that you can have for you. The other thing is there's a couple other things that come up. One thing that's can be really, really helpful with when it comes to money is you may have heard like the phrase money mindset.
Hmm.
And you can work on that in a couple ways. You can journal. Like, what am I
Hmm.
feeling about money? Do I love money? Do I hate money? You can
Yeah.
really, I mean, people are always more than welcome to come and ask me. I'm like the journal prompt queen. You want a journal prompt?
I
I'm your
love
girl.
a
You can come and
journal.
I will give them to you. Yes, I love to
Yes.
journal. I've created journals. I have all sorts of prompts for you. And we can make
Awesome.
them what you need them to be. That said,
Hmm.
like you could go to Google or Pinterest and I'm sure you
Yeah.
could just search
Chat
for
GPT.
such, okay, AI. So you can search for money mindset journaling prompts and you
Hmm.
can work through like what is really coming up for you. What are the emotions
Hmm.
there? How do you feel about money? Did you have a story growing up that was being shared around you that you've taken as your own that money is evil? Money is the root of all evil. People who have money are evil.
Yeah.
Money doesn't grow on trees. It's not easy to come by. Having that story resonate within you is not your fault. One, it's not a place to be shamed, but it is a
Yeah.
thing that can be shifted. We can change our mindset around how we feel about money. You can change your relationship with money. So you can do that with journaling. Um, or, you could work with somebody one on one where they can ask you the questions. I've
Yeah.
done exercises where the coach or the one person um, is money is the
Mm.
money side of the conversation. And I
Hmm.
might say like, I'm not feeling the love from you lately. Why don't you like me? And you can
Yeah.
talk to me as though I'm money and you're like, look, you haven't been there for me. I don't
Yeah.
trust you. And that can be extremely cathartic to get it off your mind and off your
Hmm.
chest. And also really eye-opening because you're like, oh wow, that was in there. And so often, so many things that we don't even realize are rattling around in our head or living in that space come
Mm.
out in those discussions or those journaling sessions. And it can bring
Yeah.
a huge awareness there. And then that's an opportunity for healing because whatever you had been feeling, then it's out in the light of day. and then you can take it and you can start to shift it and you can replace it with things that do feel better.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that even the work that I do with my clients, we can't even get into that work until they have some way to care for themselves with their mindset and with their body and the somatics. And, having a practice that you come back to bring yourself out of that like activated nervous system state is essential to do before we start talking about like we're going to connect your bank account to QuickBooks. Like we can't even get to that point if you're in the place where you're activated, you don't feel safe, it's an emotional experience, things are coming up for you, like that literally blocks you from being able to make good choices. And I don't specifically do that work, like I'm not licensed or I would
Mhm.
not consider myself qualified, but I do that work for myself. So, if that is coming up for somebody, I would actually be like, hey, maybe like we need to find you someone to work with so that we can do the money role playing or some
Yeah.
coaching on creating a habit for your deep breathing. If we're going to set a time to sit down and do your bookkeeping, which is what I tell folks to do, like put it on your calendar, maybe the beginning of that appointment with yourself is 2 to 3 minutes of deep breathing or a guided meditation or something to bring you back into a good state where we can be creative, we can solve problems because you can't do any of that from that activated place.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned guided meditation. There's one that comes to mind that is extremely effective when we're stressed, right? Our body is naturally in a very tense state. We're usually
Mm,
not aware of it again, but it is, trust me.
yeah.
But a thing that I love to do for myself and with clients is something called a body scan. And there's different ways
Mhm.
that you can do a body scan. And one of the ones I love is a tense and release. So you
Mm,
literally from head to toe, you tense and then
yeah.
release each body part individually. And by the time you get to your toes, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I had no idea I was that tense, but you could feel it release. And that
Yeah.
can be a really great place to start too.
Yeah, and literally from like the top of your head, like your eyebrows, your
Yes,
eyes,
you
your
scrunch your
mouth.
face,
Yeah.
you clench your jaw, and then you just let everything slap. Just
Yeah.
release. Yeah.
I'm constantly sitting here with my shoulders up against my ears when I'm working. So like I have the standing desk. I will like raise up my desk so that I can like stand and have good posture. And then I have to like squeeze and like let go to it. It's like and then once again, like going back to that mind body connection and using the body to inform the brain that like we're safe. There's no reason to be like so tense and alert right now. And I find it fascinating that this work really is about like moving your body, pushing your body, touching your body, like self massage, like tapping, all of that stuff to send a signal to your brain because we think that it's just a one direction thing. We think
Hmm.
the thoughts like the neurons are firing in our brain, the electrical signals, and then it goes to our muscles and there's no backwards flow of information, but there is like, and
Yeah.
it's something that we can tap into. Literally, EFT tapping is like my favorite thing.
It's so
um,
good.
I love it. And like anytime I am having like a moment with money or with my business or a client or gosh, an email will come through, like the phone will ring, and I'm like, all right, let me go take a minute and do some tapping for like 5 minutes because it
Yes.
does just bring me back down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not one that I personally do with clients, but it is one that I've had done with me, and I love
Yeah,
it. It's so
it's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And you can find like, look up EFT tapping on like YouTube and find like a 10-minute guided. You just have to hit a few points and it is amazing. I love it.
Yes.
What inspires you to kind of keep creating, keep doing this work? What about specifically the situation your clients find themselves in when they come to you? Is the thing that keeps you coming back? Like, what is your why? I guess we could put it
I love the
succinctly.
what is your why? Because I think so many people misunderstand the why. Like, what is my why? Oh, to make money, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, naturally.
Yeah.
My why is um it stems from where I came from, right? As a
Mhm.
military spouse, I have to give a little, I'll try to keep it succinct really quick, but I have to give a little background to get like, so, because like they say, I think we talked about this earlier in the conversation, we usually coach where we come from. And if we didn't,
Mm-hmm.
that's true, just so you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we often
Yeah.
remember where we come from. And so what happened
Yeah.
was when I married my husband, he and I, like I said, we met in the military. I got out, he
Mm-hmm.
stayed in. I got out, I had a career, I was doing big things in my career. My husband decided he wanted to do the 20 years, and I was like, oh, cool. So I get to quit and, leave behind everything that I built. And
Yeah.
it was a deeper conversation, but essentially that's what it was. We'd have
Mm.
to move every few years. I had to ditch what I had been doing and working on it, all my dreams and all my goals. And I didn't do anything with any of the stuff I had been working on. It all fell, by the wayside. Started
Mm.
having kids, and I lost everything that I loved to do for me in the process.
Mm.
I loved my kids. I loved supporting my husband,
Yeah.
and I wasn't doing anything that spoke to me. When I
Mm.
finally came around and realized, hey, I do get to have something for me that I love, it was like this massive realization and this, oh, there you are, Heather. It's nice to
Mm.
meet you again. Like I've rediscovered that piece of me that had been like shuffled to the bottom of the pile of
Mm-hmm.
all the other things that need to be done. And I
Yeah.
never want to feel that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, so that brings me to where I am as a coach today. I realize that there are so many moms generally, but in the
Oh
military,
yeah.
it's a whole other level. Your
Yeah.
service members gone a lot. The level of
Yeah.
responsibility. And I think, other moms, like single moms, for example, can relate
Oh
to
yeah.
this as well. The level of responsibility is on a whole other like plane. Um, and it can be very disheartening, very depressing, very sad. And nobody should have to live like that. You should
Yeah.
get to know that you are just as important. What you want in life is just as important. And what you strive to do is equally as
Mm.
important. And that's my why. I don't ever want to
Yeah.
see another mom sit down and go, I'll take care of me in 20 years when my service member retires.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I love that like every guest I have on has been really vulnerable with like sharing, their journey because it does service to no one, including ourselves, but especially our clients or people listening to kind of like not share in the things that are maybe bringing up a little bit of guilt or shame. Was there like something specific that you got back into in terms of like a hobby or an interest that made you realize like, oh my gosh, I need to like find something for me that is not for anybody else?
Yeah. So oddly, it started, it wasn't like a bam, there's that idea, right? It was very gradual. And so initially a friend of mine, an army friend of mine,
Hmm.
had reached out and she's like, "Hey, I'm part of this." It was an MLM. And so she
Hmm.
was recruiting me into the MLM, and I didn't know what it was, but I joined with her. I was like, cool, it's something that I get to do, bring income to the family while I stay home with. I just had the one kid at the time. I'm like, yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
like fun. Let's do it. Um, and what happened was that led me to realizing, oh, okay, this doesn't really feel like they tell you you can own your own business, right? No
Hmm.
shade. But for me, I was like, that doesn't really feel like I own my own business.
Mm. Hmm.
But you know what? I want to. I want to own my, I really like that idea of having a thing that belongs to me. And so that's what
Yeah.
led me to opening my first Etsy shop. I was
Awesome.
learning to crochet in car line.
Okay. Yeah.
And my friend was like, you should sell those hats on Etsy. I was like, what? Okay.
We are
And
totally soul sisters, like the books, the crochet. What else did you have on here?
baking,
Yeah. Animals.
animals, all the things. Yeah.
Yes. That's so cool. I think the multi-level marketing companies, the MLM, I feel like are the gateway drug to entrepreneurship for a lot of women.
Yes. That's so true. I think I've heard somebody else call it a gateway drug. So that's definitely what it is. Absolutely.
It's like that is the doorway that you get into, and you're
Hmm.
like, oh, like I could do this, but like I could also come up with my own thing. And especially folks that are creative in any sort of way, like, yeah, you're going to be like, oh, like I can take this kind of template of, because they really do like have a lot of support and teach you and give you resources and materials to market their product for them.
Yeah.
And there is, from what I know of it, like I've not ever participated in one myself selling things, but from what I know, like there is like a community aspect to it. Like we're all in this together. We're all going to kind of work together as a team. Whether or not that is like true on an individual level. I think for the most part, that's what they try to indicate the experience to be. And, you can see that like I can learn how to sell something. I can learn how to be part of a team. I can learn how to run my own business and be like accountable to myself. And then take that template and move over here, sell something that I've created or services that, I am an expert with this particular thing. And so I do see it as like a gateway drug. There's always any client that comes to me that is a woman that maybe has children and is running her own business at some point in her in her working history. She has done lip sense or what
Something.
is it, like the LuLaRoe and stuff. Like
Yeah.
my grandma sold Avon and Mary Kay like back in the day. Like,
Like the original, there's some of the original
yeah,
MLMs, I think. And yeah. They're
yeah. That's,
Amway. My parents sold Amway. I didn't know
I don't
that
even
was
know
an
what that
MLM
is.
either. It's oh, anyways, we don't need to get into it. Some
Yeah.
people who are listening know. They remember their parents sold it
Okay,
too.
okay. Yeah. I mean, and when I was a child, it was Tupperware and then Pampered Chef was
Mhm.
the thing. Oh my
Yep.
God, those women were crazy for Pampered Chef. What kind of tips, if you could go talk to yourself in the past, 10 years ago, maybe 20 years since your husband is retired, and you're maybe looking back and starting on that journey, what kind of tips or advice would you give to yourself back then that you think the listeners, whether or not they want to take the advice, might need to hear?
Hmm. So I go back to self-care isn't selfish, but I want to switch that around a little bit because it's so like it's cliche. Like, okay, yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. Great, thanks for that, right?
We get it.
Right. Thank you
Yeah.
for beating me over the head with it. It still isn't resonating.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Most of us don't do self-care at all, or at least on the level that we should be doing it because we are so
Mm.
busy caring for other people.
Hmm.
Here's the reality. At some point when you're caring for others and you're caring for others and you're caring for others, you're going to get exhausted, you're going to get overwhelmed, and you're going to get completely burned out. I'm not a gloom and doom person, but the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, this is what the future looks like without figuring out how to give back to yourself.
Yeah.
Essentially, those people that you love and you're caring for so much, you won't be able to care for on the same level. And you're teaching them that when you're a parent, you don't get to care for yourself. And
Mm.
someday, those little people watching you, those people around you watching, they're probably going to be parents too. And even if
Hmm.
it's not parenthood, right? It could be siblings, it could be other people watching us. They're learning
Yeah.
from us. You're teaching them how to be
Hmm.
in your way of being without even saying it.
Hmm.
So when you practice self-care, you're showing people, you're showing yourself how important it is and how much you value yourself. And that's a huge subconscious message to yourself. And you're
Yeah.
showing those who are watching, whether it's your children or whomever, that you get to do it now. And you're refilling your cup so you can continue to show up for them in the long term. So when I say
Yeah.
self-care isn't selfish, that's what's behind that message.
Hmm. Totally. I don't have children on purpose. And I feel like whenever I say that, I have to tag it with like, and that's a conscious choice. Like, you don't have to feel pity for me. Nobody feels bad about that over here.
I'm doing okay over here. Thank you very much, right?
Anyways, tangent. I look at the work that I do, not only like in the bookkeeping and the finances and stuff, but running a business as I want to both have the business owner life that I want to have, that it's supportive. I take time off, like I'm not always stressed and like freaking out. But I also want to model that for my clients. Like they are working with me so that they can have more organized finances, so they can be, the business owner they want to be like. And if I'm not doing those things myself, first of all, that's a disservice to me, but it's also not modeling that behavior for my clients. I'm not like walking my talk at that point. So there was a point where, I was feeling a lot of shame about like credit debt and all this kind of stuff, or like feeling really anxious about taking time off, even though like I don't have to ask anybody permission to take time off anymore. And I was just like, oh, like first of all, this is what I wanted when I started a business, is I wanted that experience for myself, and I want to model that behavior for the people who are watching me. Like, I'm a visible person because I'm online selling my services. And, even with friends or people in my community that aren't entrepreneurs, like, I just want to model that that kind of lifestyle is available. And like, it does take work to get there, but so many of us default to being super stressed and burned out, because it takes intention and it takes work to have those habits of taking care of yourself, to prioritizing your self-care. So for me, like, I don't have children or little folks in my life that are necessarily watching my every move, but it is especially important for folks who do or don't have children, like, model the kind of behavior that um you want for yourself, but like to see out in the world as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great perspective because I am a mom and I do work with moms. My tendency is to go like we're showing up for our kids, right? But there's so many other people in life that we show up for. Your clients
Yeah.
are a huge group
Mm.
of, who we show up for and modeling. You definitely can't do the do as I say, not as I do. That
Yeah.
doesn't work ever.
Right. Yeah.
um, for kids or clients. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can't go, this is how you do it. This is how you do the thing and not be living that thing. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to trust you.
Yeah.
You've got to be coming. How do I know that this is how you do it? Because this is how I do it. It works, right?
Yeah. Exactly. What would you like to share with the audience? Maybe like, do we have a way that we can come find you and work with you or learn from you? Do you have like a resource that you want to tell folks about that they can start implementing this work in their business?
Sure. So I have to apologize because I know that you have male and female listeners.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's all the people.
Yeah, so I mean, men are more than welcome to take what I have. But what I've created is specifically for moms. So I have
Hmm.
for women really. I have
Hmm.
I should go back to moms. It's for moms. It's 3 ways to stop the mom guilt on the spot is exactly what it's called. So it's definitely
Okay.
for moms.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a freebie that I offer. I also have videos all over YouTube, which you don't have
Okay.
to, you don't have to give me an email for that. And you can watch it, and there's lots of information that anybody can take for themselves and implement. But if somebody wanted to reach out, the best way is probably through my website, which is
Okay.
super easy. It's heatherjonescoaching.com.
Amazing. Anything else you can think of that you want the audience to know before we log off?
There's always 8 million things. I let's see. I um
It's okay
I'm
if the answer is no right now, too.
one thing that comes to mind. I
Huh.
am a true cheese ball and absolutely strong believer in that if you want it, it's available to you.
Mm.
And so don't deny yourself the opportunity to claim it.
I love it. Perfect. What a great note to end on. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing just some great advice, tips, and like sharing your experience with us too. Like, I think it's so important for folks to see themselves in people that are, once again, modeling the kind of business owner or the mom or the spouse that they themselves want to be. So I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me on.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Money Through Ease. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. Your feedback really does mean a lot to me. And if you're ready to take the first step towards organized finances, be sure to download my free receipt organization guide, Chaos to Calm. Visit the link in the show notes to grab your free copy now. Remember, your financial journey starts with small steps. I'm here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, this is Reagan Bashara from Money Through Ease. Stay empowered.